Have you ever walked away from a situation knowing, deep in your gut, that you should have said something, but didn't? Have you watched someone take what was rightfully yours, credit, opportunity, respect, while you stayed silent, telling yourself it wasn't worth the fight? And have you noticed that the more you try to avoid conflict, the more life seems to push you around? Here's a brutal truth. Passive people don't just lose. They train the world to treat them like they don't matter. We're told that being quiet, compliant, non-confrontational makes us good. But is that really goodness? Or is it fear in disguise? There's a war happening inside every passive person. A war between what they feel and what they allow. A war between their resentment and their silence. And the longer it goes on, the more they lose. Not just externally, but internally. But why does this happen? Why is passivity so seductive, even as it slowly erodes self-worth? More importantly, what is it really costing you? In this video, we're going to explore the psychological trap of passivity and why the world is rigged against those who stay quiet. We'll dive into ancient philosophy, Nietzsche's concept of the will to power, and the hidden dangers of moral cowardice disguised as peacekeeping. And we'll confront something even more uncomfortable. What if your passivity isn't kindness, but a fear of truly existing as yourself? That's the first open wound we'll examine. But by the end of this journey, you'll see why reclaiming your power isn't about becoming aggressive. It's about becoming real, dangerous in the best way. And by the end, you may not just understand why passive people lose. You may understand why you keep losing and exactly how to change it. So don't click away, because the next few minutes could alter how you carry yourself for the rest of your life. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "The object is to attain that enormous energy of greatness which can model the man of the future by means of discipline and also by means of the annihilation of millions of the bungled and the botched." Brutal? Yes. But beneath the provocation lies a core truth. Life doesn't reward passivity, it consumes it. Nietzsche didn't believe in nice people. He believed in power, not domination, but the inner force that allows a person to shape reality instead of being shaped by it. What he called the will to power was not just ambition or aggression. It was the raw, evolutionary drive of life to express itself, to become, to create. And according to Nietzsche, the opposite of this will to power is resentment. Resentment is the poison that festers when people feel powerless but pretend they are morally superior. When the weak cannot act, they condemn action. When they cannot assert, they label assertion as evil. They stay small, not out of virtue, but out of fear. And over time, that fear gets painted with a false halo. I'm peaceful, I'm selfless, I'm good. But Nietzsche saw through that illusion. He believed that passivity is often just cowardice, wearing a moral mask. And here's the twist. Most passive people don't realize they're passive out of fear. They think they're just trying to keep the peace, or avoid drama, or be the bigger person. But peace without power is just submission, and submission breeds resentment. Let that sink in. You tell yourself you're being noble, letting others speak over you, ignoring injustice, staying quiet to avoid conflict. But underneath it all, something is boiling, and Nietzsche would say, that boil is your will, repressed. Life energy turned sour. This is why passive people don't just lose externally, they deteriorate internally. They become hollow, bitter, unsure of who they even are. They suffer quietly while others shape the world around them. Nietzsche believed that to live truthfully, one must be willing to disturb the peace. To affirm life is to express yourself fully, even if it offends, even if it risks isolation, even if it hurts. Because the alternative is something far worse, the slow death of your own soul. And maybe that's what you've been feeling, isn't it? The fatigue, the numbness, the quiet rage, Not because you're broken, but because you've betrayed your own power, over and over again, until your body started to mourn what your voice refused to say. So ask yourself, when did you first learn that being silent was safer than being seen? Who taught you that your power was a threat? And how long have you been living as someone half alive, hoping the world will still reward your invisibility? We're just beginning to explore this. In the next section, we'll go even deeper into the psychological traps that make passivity so addictive, and how society itself conditions you to lose by being agreeable, pleasant, and small. But remember this, Nietzsche didn't say you had to become a tyrant. He said you had to become who you are. And until you do, you will keep losing, because you're not showing up as anyone real. You were never born passive. You learned to be. Look at any toddler. They cry when they're hurt. They scream when something's unfair. They throw their food when they don't like it. They're alive, undiluted, unafraid of being too much. So what happened to you? Maybe it was the teacher who told you to stop talking back. The parent who only showed you love when you were quiet and agreeable. The friend group that punished honesty with exclusion. The partner who said your emotions were too intense. Somewhere along the way, you learned a dangerous lesson, that shrinking yourself would keep you safe. And it worked, for a while. You avoided fights, you pleased others, you played small and called it being easygoing. But then, you started to disappear. People stopped listening, opportunities passed you by. You got good at hiding, and life stopped seeing you. Because here's the truth, you trained the world to ignore you. Not because you're worthless, but because you acted like you were. In psychology, there's a phenomenon called learned helplessness. It's when someone is subjected to repeated failure or rejection until they eventually give up. Even when escape or success becomes possible, they stop trying, not because they're weak, but because they've been trained to believe their actions don't matter. And here's what no one tells you. You don't need trauma to become passive. You just need enough moments where your truth was met with punishment and your silence was met with approval. Each moment becomes a brick, a wall builds, and over time, you start calling that wall your personality. You don't speak, not because you're calm, but because somewhere deep down, you believe your voice is a liability. You don't push back, not because you're moral, but because somewhere deep down, you believe you're not allowed to take up space. That's not humility, that's self-erasure. And the world, your workplace, your relationships, your environment, learns to treat you accordingly. Because society rewards the small. You get praise for being easygoing, nice, low maintenance, the one who never complains. But the moment you need something, the room goes quiet. The moment you assert yourself, you're called selfish. The moment you push back, you're not the person we thought you were. And that's when it hits you. They never loved you. They loved your obedience. That's the trap. You built a life around being passive, and now that life depends on you staying that way, the friends, the partner, the job, they all exist in relation to your smallness. And here's the most painful truth. If you stop being passive, some of that life may have to die. But what's the alternative? To keep betraying yourself, quietly, politely, until you don't even recognize who you are. Let's be even more honest. Passivity often disguises itself as morality. You think you're being kind, mature, peaceful, but what you're actually being is afraid. And that fear wears a halo. You bite your tongue. You tolerate too much. You pretend you're fine. You call it taking the high road. But inside, you rot. That bitterness, that quiet resentment, that exhaustion, that's not just burnout. That's your soul fighting for space in a life that keeps telling it to shut up. Passivity isn't noble. It's just safer until it isn't. Because one day, it catches up to you. In the mirror, in the breakdown, in the friendship that fell apart without a word, in the partner who walked all over you and then left you feeling like it was your fault. You carry the pain of what you didn't say, the opportunities you didn't take, the boundaries you didn't enforce, the self you never allowed to fully show up. And your body remembers the tight chest, the shallow breath, the jaw that clenches when you smile through disrespect, the nights you lie awake, rerunning every conversation where you disappeared. Passivity doesn't protect you, it just postpones your pain, and when it comes, it arrives wrapped in shame. Shame that you didn't stand up. Shame that you betrayed yourself. Shame that the only person who didn't fight for you was you. Now here's the paradox. You can't be peaceful unless you're capable of being dangerous. Not cruel, not abusive, but capable. True peace isn't the absence of power, it's the presence of restraint. If you don't know how to set a boundary, say no, speak the truth, and hold your line, then your peace is a performance, a mask, a survival mechanism. So here's the real challenge. Stop trying to be liked. Start trying to be real. Because if you're not willing to be disliked, you're not willing to be free. Let that settle in your chest. This is the door you've been avoiding. The one labeled the real you. It's rusted shut from years of silence. You've walked past it 1,000 times. But today, maybe, you're ready to touch the handle. Because behind that door isn't danger, it's power. And power doesn't mean dominance. It means presence. The kind of presence that says, I will not abandon myself to keep you comfortable. That's the presence that changes lives. That's the presence that changes you. And now, with everything you've seen, remembered, and felt, it's time to walk through. Let's keep going. Let's stop philosophizing for a minute. Let's talk about you. Because this isn't just abstract. This isn't just Nietzsche, or psychology, or theory. This is your life. You, the one who's always been too nice. You, the one who overthinks before speaking. You, the one who tolerates just a little too much for a little too long. You, the one who's exhausted from being invisible, but terrified of being seen. Let me ask you something. How many times have you betrayed yourself just to keep someone else comfortable? You didn't call them out. You didn't set a boundary. You didn't say what you needed. You smiled. You nodded. You swallowed it. And then you went home and hated yourself for it. You're not tired from doing too much. You're tired from not doing what matters. You were trying to be safe. You thought being easy to love meant being easy to manage. You thought avoiding conflict meant avoiding pain. But all it really did was avoid the truth, your truth. Nothing in your life will change until you start making people uncomfortable. Because speaking up will shock them. Setting boundaries will disappoint them. Saying no will confuse them. Why? Because you've trained them not to expect it from you. And every time you don't do it, you confirm the lie they believe. That you're fine, that you don't mind, that you don't matter. But you do. And if you don't start acting like you matter, no one else will. Who would you be if you stopped trying to be easy? Not agreeable, not liked, not conflict avoidant, but real. What would that version of you say? What would they demand? What would they walk away from? Finally, would your partner still love you? Would your friends still respect you? Would your boss still treat you the same? Maybe not. But maybe that's the point. Because anything that requires your silence to survive was never yours to begin with. You are allowed to speak. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your time, your peace, your body, your voice, your life. This world has convinced you that quietness is humility, that softness is virtue, that being liked is the highest good. But you were not put here to be agreeable. You were put here to be authentic. And authenticity will cost you something. But passivity will cost you everything. Let's be real. This didn't start with you. You were taught, by school, by religion, by your family, that your needs should come last, that good people don't make noise, that it's noble to suffer quietly. But that's not nobility. That's learned helplessness dressed as virtue, and it's killing your potential. Every time you mute your voice to protect someone else's comfort, you reinforce a lie, that their feelings matter more than your truth. It's time to rewrite that story. What happens if nothing changes? You stay at the job where your talents are ignored. You stay in the relationship where you're never quite enough. You stay in the patterns that make you smaller, sadder, quieter. And you die a little every year, not in body, but in presence, in joy, in clarity. Until one day you wake up and realize you've been alive for decades, but you've never really lived. Don't let passivity be your legacy. Let's keep going. You're close now. You've made it this far for a reason. Something inside you, maybe a whisper, maybe a scream, knows the way you've been living is no longer sustainable. That the version of you who stays quiet, avoids friction, smiles through the burn, can't carry you any further. So what now? Now, you remember this. Passivity isn't peace. Passivity is self-abandonment. You've mistaken avoidance for maturity, silence for strength, being liked for being loved. But the truth is this: you do not need to earn your right to exist loudly. You were born with that right. This isn't about yelling or becoming some alpha caricature. This is about alignment, about speaking with integrity, even when your voice shakes. So here's where you begin. Pause before you shrink. When you feel yourself shrinking, about to say, "It's fine," about to stay quiet, pause. Feel the urge to disappear and resist it. Say the truth, even if it's messy. Clarity doesn't always sound polished. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "That doesn't work for me. I need to think about this. Actually, I disagree." Let it be awkward. Let it be uncomfortable. Let it be real. Let people be disappointed. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. If being yourself causes someone to leave, good. They were only there for the edited version of you anyway. Celebrate tiny acts of power. The first time you say no and your voice doesn't crack, celebrate. The first time you set a boundary without apology, celebrate. Power builds in drops, not waves, and each drop matters. If you've made it here, if something inside you cracked open, stirred, or woke up, then prove it to yourself. Leave a comment below with this phrase: "I am done being quiet." Not just for me, not even for the algorithm. Say it for the part of you that's been buried under years of people-pleasing and moral performance. Say it as your first act of rebellion. Say it as your first real declaration of presence, because the world doesn't need more agreeable ghosts. It needs you, unfiltered, imperfect, unapologetic. So if you're done being quiet, tell me. Tell the world. Tell yourself, "I am done being quiet." Drop it below. Let the old self hear it fall. The world doesn't change when loud people talk. It changes when quiet people finally decide to speak. If you've come this far, you already know. You're not powerless. You've just been trained to forget your power. But now you remember. You remember that peace without truth is just anesthesia. That silence doesn't protect. It erases. That your voice was never too much. It was always too real for people addicted to comfort. And if you felt the shift, if your spine is a little straighter, your chest a little fuller, your anger a little sharper in all the right ways, then know this. This is just the beginning. Because in this space, we go deep. We ask questions that hurt before they heal. We don't chase comfort, we chase clarity. And if that's the kind of transformation you want more of, then you already know what to do. Subscribe right now, not because I need followers, but because you need reminders. Reminders of your strength, Reminders of your fire. Reminders that your truth is not too loud. It's just been buried too long. If this resonated with you, hit that button, because the next video, it goes even deeper, and you don't want to miss what's coming. I'll see you there, stronger, louder, fully alive.